Copa a little bit before me too, but the Copa was a big dance club that everybody went to. You know, I was really young when I started making records, so I never got into those clubs. I was kind of more into the rock scene, the downtown, rock club scene.
Like Greenwich Village, like CBGBs?
Yeah, CBGBs and, well, I can't remember all the names of these clubs, but there were more clubs that were more underground, where they were playing a lot of the music from Europe, hip-hop, electro groups, Gary Newman. You know, it was a slightly different scene. I wasn't into the disco. That was much more polished. You really had to be very polished to, be in the disco scene. I was more in the kind of grungy electro scene, clubs that were happening in New York City at the time.
Yeah, so what was it like for you listening to like all these different types of music, and then all the African American kids at that time was listening, or African Americans was listening to like disco, and disco was very polished, very studio driven, very danceable music?
Well, it wasn't actually. A lot of the kids were still listening to R&B. There was groups like Slave, and of course you had groups like Chic just starting to come out, but they were for more sophisticated listeners. I think most people my age at that time were listening to more kind of Southern funk and Gap Band and Roger Zapp and groups like that. Shalimar. You had groups like Shalimar coming from the West Coast. That sound was really popular at the time also.
Yep, Solar, Dick Griffey, Don Knez, and O'Brien.
Exactly, huge. That stuff was huge right then.
Yeah, Soul Trains are coming out, Freaky, Gigolo.
Yeah, it was also Soul Train had a huge influence on what we were listening to, and the music, what we came to know as music. And R&B music was still kind of, the older groups were starting to fade out, groups like the Temptations and the Four Tops and Kool and the groups like that were still very much very central in what was going on in the R&B music.
And then around like the early 80s when hip-hop started merging, then you had UTFO, Grandmaster Flash, then 4-4. So by that time it was like, okay, we're going to make music, but we're going to do it for the kids. Right.
Well, that was a more underground scene. So these records, although they were popular in a very small sector. I mean, they weren't nationally accepted, but in New York, you're right, those groups were the groups that we loved, the UTFOs, and pretty soon Russell Simmons started coming out with his groups out of Queens, and the whole hip-hop scene was really, beginning in its infancy.
Right, and I believe, like, Hot 103, which later went on to be Hot 97, they were the first radio station anywhere to start playing, like, extended versions of, like, tracks that you would hear, like, at the club.
Oh, yeah, they played the B-side, they did extended mix shows. In fact, during that time, if you made a record, you'd actually have to go down to the clubs and try to get the DJ to play it and play the extended version and the vocal version, during the club hours.
Now, what is your current take on the music industry today?
I think it's great. There's a lot of great things coming out. It's no different than before. I mean, there's not as many great musical songs because a lot of the songs aren't as musical as they used to be, but there's still a lot of great music. I mean, I hear things all the time that, blow me away. So I think the music business is still just as healthy as it always was.
Okay, now what is David up to now?
David lives in L.A., and actually his son has a record coming out. His son's name is Griffith Frank, and he has like kind of a pop record, like a Josh Groban kind of record coming out.
Okay, and what are you up to these days?
These days I am writing songs mostly for pop artists right now.
Okay.
I write songs for a lot of different pop artists on different labels.
Okay, name some of the people that you wrote songs for, like, over the years.
Historically, let's see. I mean, Madonna. A lot of different artists that are pop artists that come from England and groups from California.
Okay. All right. Now, do you feel that the whole 80s vibe is like kind of like sort of making a resurgence? Because we are sort of kind of seeing that a little bit.
Well, yeah, because that music is still relevant right now because the people are really starting to listen to a lot of the electro. And also, as I walk around New York City, I see sometimes people dress so much like the 80s, it blows my mind. And with the bandana around the neck, with the sneakers and the laces and the bright colors and the tight pants and the tight jeans, it's definitely going to be a big resurgence.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I was doing this first time around.
Exactly, it's crazy.
Just as long as they're not rocking the escrow.
No, I don't see any S curls yet. But hey, don't doubt that the S curl won't rock again, okay?
Nah. That's one staple of the 80s I don't want to see come back.
Okay.
You will not catch me on my worst day rocking the S curl. I mean, you have to keep it moist and dry, and do not get into open flames, or else it'll be a Michael Jackson story.
I'm gonna check you in a couple of years, man. Let me see what's going on, okay?
All right, now, you got any shout-outs that you want to give before we conclude this interview?
Well, I'd like to shout out to all my peeps down there. I'm actually from Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'd like to give a big shout out to all my peeps in North Carolina.
All right. I did not know you were a North Carolina boy. That's another bond right there.
Born in Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, another Time Machine exclusive. Mick Murphy from the 80s group, The System. Mr. Murphy, thank you for doing this interview, and hang on the line.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
There you have it. Exclusive interview. Shout out goes to my girl, Laura, in Mexico that's listening. Thanks, Mr. G's, for making this thing even more worldwide. Hola, Laura in Mexico. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien in radio station WAG. But right now, we're going to go into The System with Don't Disturb This Groove on WUAG 103.FM.